Hello, everybody. My name is Jordan Arnold, and I chose to research on the question, how did the news organizations cover the Black Lives Matter movement? Okay, so just a brief view of what the Black Lives Matter campaign is, movement. Many of you guys may know, but it sprung about in 2013 on Twitter after Trayvon Martin was shot wrongfully by a cop by the name of George Zimmerman. So from that point, three women, they chose to start a hashtag Black Lives Matter on Twitter to bring awareness to the campaign, and it ended up getting them a lot of news publicity, a lot of tabloid publicity, and even a lot of social media publicity as well. So I'm an African American woman myself, and of course, I hear a lot of talk about how the movement was wrongfully portrayed in the media as far as African Americans trying to make us look bad and just make it look like the movement wasn't trying to spread awareness and advocate just for equal rights and racism itself. So again, I wanted to focus on the portrayal of African Americans in the news media. So these are just a few images just to discuss the point I am trying to get at. So the image on the left, probably you're right. As you can see, two different set of men of different ethnicities being portrayed in two different ways. So this is the point that I wanted to get into and look into when it came to the Black Lives Matter movement. Like, we're all African American men portrayed as these men are on the screen with their mugshots instead of in presentable clothes like these Caucasian men are portrayed. And the image accompanying it is just to bring about a little humor to the situation, but it's still focusing on the main point that I wanted to look into. Okay, so one of my researches that I included in my paper was about dictorum from one of the writers of an article, Chloe Banks. And basically, she defined decorum as a rhetorical strategy of the news organizations, and she labeled it as an unfair representation of the campaign itself. She said that dictorum, it reiterates cultural norms of stranger sociability and restricts access to public spaces to certain individuals who do not perform or conform to these social codes that govern public spaces. So the two examples that she gave was just about when the movement started off, how I mentioned it got so much publicity from the news and social media. So basically, at first everybody was all for the movement. They felt like it was good to get this awareness, and African Americans deserve this awareness and should be treated fairly. But as it went on, the kinks and the twists of the movement, which were the looting, the fighting, the stealing, the beating, it seemed that articles tended to focus more on that just after it had started, instead of focusing on the point that these creators wanted it to, which was to advocate and to bring awareness to the police brutality that was taking place, and just the racism and the mistreatment of African Americans that was taking place. And then this other article that I found, it was basically a comparison article about how the campaign was portrayed in tabloids versus how it was portrayed in the news. So the trend showed that most tabloids chose to focus on the not so important parts of the movement, which was the fighting and the looting and the disrespect that took place. And with the news articles, they did a little of that, but they also chose to highlight the movement itself and to focus. Oh, excuse me. And it chose to focus on the movement and the meaning of the movement instead of just focusing on the negative points of the movement. But it doesn't mean that the news did not take the route that the tabloid chose to take, which I didn't find shocking at all, really, honestly. So, just from these tad bits of the research that I included to help get me to this conclusion, it seems that it's more so a mixture. It's not really the news chose to portray black people as these violent people that didn't want nothing really to come from the movement. It's kind of a mix, though. It shows the importance of the movement and how African Americans were trying to advocate for their rights and what they deserve, but it also did show the violence, and it kind of gave African Americans more of a negative connotation. But I feel like the news always has done that. It just seemed like with something so important, I really wouldn't have expected more articles that were negative to be published as much. I kind of expected it to be more about the movement itself and the awareness that these three women wanted to bring to the issue, but it just seemed like it was a mixture of both, and really that just really told me like all this research that we've been doing from these articles and stuff, it just shows it's time for the news media to get a makeover seriously. Some rules need to be in place. Biased opinions need to stay out of journalist articles, because I feel like you're trying to set your audience up to feel how you feel. I feel like it should just be strictly business. Just focus on the issue itself and present it and keep it moving. Like, it's no way that from the beginning, those two images I showed you, those men should be dressed different. Both set of men should be presented in the media in a presentable manner, a respectful manner. So, thank you for your time.